The sweltering tropical splendour of Sulawesi seems a long way away on a cold and wet morning in northern England. But this is the first step on the way for the eager British adventurers hoping to represent their country in the 8th Camel Trophy. Risby in North Yorkshire is the venue for the finals of the British selection procedure. Here, 24 applicants will be whittled down to just 4, and those 4 will go on to the international finals of the contest. Already, thousands of applications have been studied, sorted and assessed, but only 2 British adventurers will be going on to join the finest of the international brigade. Driving ability in all types of conditions is just one of the skills which applicants are assessed on in their quest for a Camel Trophy place. It's essential, too, that contestants are at the peak of physical fitness, so they're put through their paces on the Army-style assault course. It's tough, but nothing compared to the rigours which will lie ahead in Sulawesi. Everyone who makes the final cut will have to be at the peak of fitness. A 5-mile run in the freezing cold will seem like a mere stroll once they've sampled some of the delights of the trophy proper. Teamwork, leadership qualities and a candidate's approach to problem solving are what the assessors are looking for. There'll be plenty of occasions when a working knowledge of the winch comes in handy too. Eastnor Castle in Herefordshire is the testing and training ground for Land Rover and an ideal setting for the finals of the international selection procedure. 4 hopefuls from each of the 12 nations vying for 2 places in each team. Land Rovers have been chosen as the event's official vehicle in all but the first Camel Trophy. This year the contestants will use specially built and modified Land Rover 110 station wagons for their 1,325-mile journey of adventure. The Eastnor Castle land provides some of the roughest of road terrain found anywhere, an ideal venue for finding out the strengths and weaknesses of those still in the hunt for those coveted Camel Trophy team berths. Rough road driving talent is of vital importance, but there are other skills to be mastered too. The chainsaw will prove to be an indispensable tool. And there are others.
Very simple. You will be equipped with one of these. Very useful tool, that. Never stand on the same side that you're cutting. You're cutting this side, and you hit the branch, it comes off straight into the leg. So always make a point of standing on the opposite side where you're cutting. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Instruction is detailed and thorough.
Round the back twice and back through the loop.
And the emphasis is on practical skills. Get this Land Rover across this stream, they said.
2-1 or 2. Because you won't. That's right. You have to work it out. Yes.
This will be the first of many bridges the lucky few will have to construct. The acid test. Intense concentration from the man giving the instructions is matched only by that of the fellow in the driving seat. Stream crossings will become routine during the trophy itself, but for now it's easy does it. This year there's a new format to the Camel Trophy. 2 days of special tasks will be followed by an 8-day adventure trail through 1,325 miles of rough, tough Sulawesi terrain, then 2 more days of special tasks. The versatility of the Land Rover 110 makes it the ideal Camel Trophy workhorse. The 85-brake horsepower turbocharged diesel engine seems able to cope with anything the trophy organisers can dish out at Eastnor with ease. It's just as well. There's a lot worse to come in Sulawesi. This rigorous final selection procedure takes a total of 2 weeks, with each nation's band of hopefuls undergoing 3 days of intensive training and assessment. Camel Trophy Rule 1, if in doubt, dig your way out. Rule 2, if there is any water within a 10-mile radius, then the route will go right through it at some point. Eventually, the selectors make their final choice of the 24 men who will fly halfway around the world to take part in one of the last great adventures, the 1988 Camel Trophy. Manado Airport, Sulawesi, and the team set foot on the Indonesian island for the first time. The adventure is about to begin. The fierce-looking but friendly natives are out in force to celebrate the arrival of the Camel Trophy on their soil with a traditional dance of welcome. But the festivities are short-lived for the participants. There's no time to lose in loading up the vehicles for the journey ahead. These boots are made for walking, but they'll be doing their share of driving too over the next 12 days. The Land Rovers are in pristine condition now, but they'll have to soak up a lot of punishment in the days ahead, so everything is checked, double-checked, and then checked again. Survival equipment and provisions are carefully stashed and stowed away. Fresh drinking water is transferred into sterile jerry cans. Each contestant adds those little personal touches to the vehicle that will be his home for the best part of the next 2 weeks. And personal gear is stowed in waterproof bags as protection against the damp. There's one new team to the Camel Trophy this year, the pairing from Argentina. They and the Japanese crew are the only non-Europeans in the 12-team lineup. They say there's 2 types of climate in Sulawesi, hot and dry, and hot and wet. At the moment, it's the latter. For the first time, the Camel Trophy is being split into 2 distinct elements. The adventure trail will begin in a couple of days, but first there are 2 days of competitive special tasks. In a departure from previous Camel Trophies, the emphasis for the special tasks will be shifted from speed and vehicle recovery to navigation and teamwork. The locals give the trophy teamsters a rousing send-off. This year there are teams from Belgium, the Canary Isles, France and West Germany, Holland, Italy, Japan, Spain, Switzerland and Turkey, as well as the United Kingdom and newcomer Argentina. The winners will be decided over the 4 days of special tasks, 2 at the start of the event and 2 at the end. And the competitors will vote among themselves for the Team Spirit Award, which goes to the crew which best embodies the spirit of this unique event. Just 20 kilometers from Manado, the Camel Trophy train pitches camp for the first night. The good news is that it's dry. The bad news is that no one expects the rain to hold off for long. Bivouacs are improvised, and the competitors start to get used to the unfamiliar equipment. The Belgians have the cooking organised. They get 2 accompanying journalists to make the meal. Dawn on day 1 of the Camel Trophy proper, the first day of competition, will see 2 special tasks. The first, 13 kilometres long, the second, a gruelling 38. Get a bit of fresh air. This is where all the preparation and training will begin to pay off, but it is still very much a giant step into the unknown. There's the last driver's briefing from event manager Jim Slade. And a last look at the map of the island, which the convoy will traverse from north to south during the 12 days of the event. At last, the order is given for the wagons to roll, and the Camel Trophy convoy sets out on its 1,300-mile trek into some of the most difficult territory attempted in the 8-year history of the event. The Italians, 3 times winners of the Camel Trophy, are once again the favourites. And the Argentinians, first-timers this year, are hoping for a trouble-free Camel Trophy debut. The Dutch won the event 5 years ago in Zaire, and they're flying the flag in the hope of a victory this time around. One by one, the Land Rover 110s arrive at the embarkation point for the first special task. There's a last-minute briefing for each and every one of the crews to make sure they know exactly what is expected of them over the 13-kilometre navigation test. An ideal time has been predetermined, and the crew who finishes in the nearest time to that will gain maximum points. Lots are drawn for starting position, and it's the Spanish team of Francisco Pardo Brucar and Jose Luis Esarte Goyna who set the ball rolling. They start in the dry, but before long, the heavens open. That's not the noise of gunfire, it's the rain beating on the camera during the typically tropical downpour which beset the first day. The heavy rains of this region can turn the smallest stream into a raging torrent in a matter of minutes. But the Land Rovers weather the storm in fine style. The French crew of Francois Léonard and Eric Spekerman are the only ones to hit trouble with a persistent electrical fault. The Turkish team have never won the Camel Trophy, but this year Galip Gurel and Ali Davici have high hopes of changing all that. The Turks stamped their authority on the first special stage by taking just 19 seconds longer than the standard time to complete the course. The friendly Turkish team are not above checking the route with a wayside camera crew if necessary. The Belgians, Marc Bouls and Yves de Bebeur, sum up the general attitude to the first day of competition. There's still a long, long way to go. During the tricky later stages of the task, the Germans became stuck 4 times and had to winch their way out on each occasion, but they still managed to finish in 6th and 8th places on the 2 special stages. Bucking like a galleon in a heavy sea, the British team of policeman Jim Benson and contractor Mark Day. They hit trouble on the first test and took more than 2 minutes longer than the set time to finish 8th. It was the same story in the second task, where the duo collected their second 8th placing. The Japanese, another team who have never managed to win the event, were also in trouble. They were 7th in the first task, but slumped to 10th best in the second test. The Argentinian newcomers, Daniel Aguila and Juan Sanchez Catala, lost time when they became stuck behind the French team, who were stranded with their electrical fault. But the problems of the French weren't confined to lack of sparks. They also found themselves having to resort to the winch after getting themselves stuck in a ditch. Their troubles put them firmly last, the only group without a single point after the first 2 tasks. Canary Islanders Wouter Sherry and Jose Mario Villavicencio had the advantage of being the first car through the task, but they were soon in the wars on stage 2 when they hit a rock and suffered a puncture. The rains came and went throughout the day, turning the track into a muddy morass. The Italians, Silvano Dell'Anna and Edmondo Licursi, sailed through the sea of mud with ease. They were just 10 seconds behind the winning Turks on stage 1. Full speed ahead for the Germans, who need to make up time after crashing and damaging the front of the Land Rover. At the end of day one, most competitors were glad to see their new base camp appear out of the gloom of the gathering dusk. Even the kamikaze dogs turned out to greet the travellers, but the Swiss team of Peter Dudley and Leo Kalber-Matten managed to avoid the canine spectator and an international incident into the bargain. The Brits make it back as night begins to fall, but there'll be little sleep for the Camel trophyists. They'll have to burn the midnight oil to make sure their battered machinery is in tip-top condition for the next day's specials. Check-in time for Mark Day and his teammate Jim Benson, and they slot into their place in the overall order.
Everything okay back there? You didn't pass any of the stationary stuff?
After two stages, Turkey lead with 27 points, following a win and a second place so far. Italy held second spot on 20 points, with Holland third on 16 and Switzerland fourth, 1 point behind. A lone Land Rover picks its way carefully through the Sulawesi jungle on day 2 of the 1988 Camel Trophy adventure. For many, the night merged into day without any hint of rest. The Japanese team of Koichi Kinoshita and Toru Sekiguchi were up all night, changing a burnt-out clutch on their turbo-diesel Land Rover. Italians Dell'Anna and Licursi lead a two-team Camel Trophy convoy. Behind them, the Canary Islanders, who, much to their own surprise, aren't last in the competition. The tracks and trails are deeply rutted, but this is a main road around these parts. The Turks have already shown they mean business by leading after day 1, and they continue in fine form on the second set of tasks, winning Special Test 4 and maintaining their overall lead with determined driving like this. The Dutch will lose time when they stop to help the Turkish team out of a spot of bother, but they still finish both tasks third best to go second equal overall. The Spaniards, last but one in the standings at the beginning of the day, have an eventful time, but still manage to boost their overall position. They're forced to stop twice. First to mend a bent steering arm, and again to help the Japanese pair, in danger of overturning. But despite their problems, and the returning rain, they reckon they're enjoying their Camel Trophy so far. Japan look a little the worse for their small unscheduled excursion, which left them in front of only the Germans at the end of the special task of 42 kilometres. The cause of the problem was a map reading mistake, which put them 20 minutes off route. The Turks once again are forging through. They have time to make up after a series of troubles caused them to slump to 5th on the first of the day's special tasks. A bridge collapsed underneath the Land Rover, and the crew had to be pulled clear by the team from Holland. Then later, a tree fell across their path. Belgians Mark Boels and Yves de Bebeur had a great day, 4th and 2nd places in the specials. But they're still a long way down overall, thanks to a lackluster performance on day 1. Around here, it sometimes seems as if they have never gotten around to inventing the wheel. Prepare for a close encounter between two cultures, centuries apart in technological development. Four-wheel drive meets four-hoof drive. There's no winner, each goes on its own way quite content. The Germans, who find themselves in the deepest trouble on day 2. Dirk Batterman and Norbert Skodok's Land Rover slipped into a ditch and landed on its roof. Neither man was hurt and the vehicle was undamaged, but it took hours to winch the team clear, and they finished last in both specials, causing them to slide to 9th overall. Turkey is still in front overall, with Holland 2nd and Italy 3rd. And the Turks prove that they're more than just good drivers and navigators. One of the team members is dentist Galip Gurel, and he's called upon to improvise when a journalist breaks a tooth. Beware, it's not a pretty sight, but it is very effective. The United Kingdom won stage 3, but is that the objective?
What's the object for you for Camel Trophy? Is it to win or just to enjoy it?
Bit of both. I want to win, and I want to enjoy it. And a win would make the enjoyment even better, but I'm going to enjoy it anyway.
Leonard, what do you think of Sulawesi?
Sulawesi, I think this is a great country. I thought there should be a little bit more sun, but it's mussel now. It's raining many times a day. A lot of clouds and very hot. But the people here, they are very friendly. We are now in a sector, it's called Minahasa, and they called it the 12th province of Holland. So all the people are Holland-minded. They give us fruit, they give us everything. They sing Dutch songs for us, and well, we really enjoy it here.
What do you think of Sulawesi? What are your impressions of the island?
Yeah, the island itself is very nice. I mean, it's green. It's very green right now because we are in the rainy season, and it's about the people. People are very nice too. They're very friendly. All the villages we went through, there are always a lot of people. I mean, waving hands and things like that and shouting. It makes me feel very well.
Eric, what do you think of the other teams that have come on this year's Camel Trophy? Is it a good spirit?
Well, for me it's difficult to compare from the other years because I never made the Camel Trophy. But it looks nice. I mean, I'm so glad to be here anyway, that whatever, if even some team will be very competitive, is that the word? It's not my problem. Our politic is to go through the island of Sulawesi for the Camel Trophy, and that's the main point.
A few thoughts from some of the intrepid adventurers as they begin the longest and most grueling part of their adventure trek. After being seen off from their base camp at Kora Kora by the local governor and police outriders, the 18-car convoy is on its own again as the Camel Trophy travellers head towards the mountains. The drive's meant to be easy, but several teams hit trouble. The British had to break a differential casing and spend until 2 a.m. at the roadside. The Spaniards find the going tough too, slipping into a ditch. But it's all in a day's toil as the Camel Trophy keeps on trekking. A bridge too far for Belgians Mark Bulls and Yves de Bebeur stuck fast as the rickety bridge collapses underneath their Land Rover. The makeshift river crossing finally cried enough after 10 years' traffic passed over in the space of an hour. A near thing for Belgium, but immediately the camaraderie of this unique event comes to the fore as the rival teams set to work to extricate the stricken vehicle from its precarious perch. The combined efforts of the British, German, Italian and Canary Island teams winched, manhandled and coaxed the Belgians safely to the shore. But the bridge is a little the worse for wear and is in need of some serious repairs. With the aid of winched brute force, a lot of ingenuity and some international but unmistakable sign language, the crossing is repaired.
Okay.
And the rest of the Camel Trophy convoy makes it over the water, leaving the bridge good for another 10 years' use. One of the most modern forms of transport meets one of the oldest and least sophisticated as the teams top up with fuel before they tackle the mountain pass that leads to the lost coast of Sulawesi. There are no petrol pumps out here, so the barrels of diesel have to be brought in by bullock cart, the region's most common method of haulage. There's time for a quick dip for Argentinians Daniel Aguila and Juan Catala.
You can see the mountains up behind us here. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we have to work today, and I think also we'll see some very good natural life, maybe animals, maybe monkeys. I think will be the best part of the travel.
With temperatures up around 100 degrees, the cool waters provide a welcome refuge from the sweltering heat. There's time for a wash and brush up, a self-powered shower, time to plan the route, and quench that raging thirst in preparation for the assault on the mountains.
Are you looking forward to the big climb over the mountain?
Yep, that's it. Just getting ready. First thing to do, just get clean, because we don't know what we'll find over there.
Alone against the emerald green landscape of the Sulawesi jungle, a single Land Rover powers its way up the mountain track. In the background, the sound of a chainsaw, a sound that would split the silence many times in the next few days as the Camel Trophy blazes along the trail from Tamini to Tinabogan, the first vehicles to attempt the trip in 6 months. The rains of the winter have caused mudslides and landslips which make the track impassable in places, but the biggest problem is fallen trees. All that training months ago and half a world away at Eastnor Castle will now pay off as the crews work together to reopen the route. If it's not the buzz of chainsaws, it's the thud of hand axes which reverberates around the still mountains. Brute force and teamwork is the answer most of the time. And if in doubt, dig your way out. Sawing, cutting and digging and winching eventually pay off, and the Camel Trophy road gang forge a route through. It's only a matter of time, though, before they find the path blocked once again. With all the obstacles, progress is painfully slow. By the end of the day, just 21 kilometers is on the clock. sometimes the track is barely wide enough for a vehicle to pass. Luckily, there's little prospect of meeting someone coming the other way. In line astern, the Camel Trophy train, about as far as you can get from the desert. Japan's Kinoshita and Sekiguchi well and truly stuck in a rut. But the power of the Land Rover's trusty winch gets them on the road again. The Japanese experience makes the rest a little wary. Sometimes when a tree has fallen right across the trail, there's nothing for it. You just have to chop out the middle, roll away the offending section, and drive through the gap. The French pairing of Léonard and Spijkerman are the trailblazers this time. But sometimes the right route isn't as straightforward as it might seem. Occasionally, you have to go backwards to advance. The months of rain make the steep climbs ultra-treacherous. But the Turks seem to have driving technique off to a T. Nightfall brings relief from the swarms of mosquitoes which have plagued the adventurers throughout the heat of the daytime. The insects have proved to be a serious hazard. Dutchman Leendert Ursum and Merck de Jong put their vehicle into a ditch when driver Leendert was attacked by a swarm which made him completely lose control of the Land Rover. The UK team have been having further trouble with their transport, losing time again and again with a recurrent differential problem. However, Land Rover's specialist engineer on the event, Colin Hill, and mechanic Fred Wanicek will replace the entire diff at the next night halt. At last, the weary and travel-stained Camel Trophy travellers make camp for the night, most too exhausted for anything but welcome sleep. And there's precious little sleep. Everyone is up at first light to ready themselves for the 6:30 start. There's just time for a quick vehicle check and a sip or two of refreshment. time to tie up a few loose ends and grab a bit of breakfast. Some are better at waking up than others. But eventually, everyone is on the road again, if you can call it a road. It is now the end of March, and this road hasn't been driven since the Camel Trophy recovery trip the previous September. The convoy meets obstacle after obstacle. Matters are made worse for the Belgians when their vehicle develops a gearbox fault which has to be fixed at the trackside. The going is made so treacherous because there appears to be a safe, if dusty, surface. In fact, the dust covers a deadly layer of slippery mud. Every single climb has to be approached with the utmost caution. One mistake could spell disaster. But the Argentinians are safely through this time. Then the biggest obstacle so far. Yet another landslip blocks progress. There's nothing for it but to bring out the metal roadway tracks and manhandle them into position.
You want to rig it up? Drop it in the hole.
Eventually, the makeshift road is ready for the ultimate test. The Land Rover has to be lined up inch perfect. But the Brits make it over without any problem. The teams are now more than 1,500 metres above sea level on the pass between Mount Tomini and Basago, and on the whole, they're glad of the altitude, which brings cooler air and fewer mosquitoes. The Japanese get a bit too close for comfort, but there's no harm done this time. Gently does it for Germany. But there's a traffic jam up ahead, as the convoy is halted by a massive tree root blocking the way. Pickaxes, chainsaws, winches, axes and muscle are the only answer if there's to be any further progress today. Inch by inch, the gigantic root is levered and coaxed out of the way, before the teams eventually heave it over the side and send it plunging down the ravine. But it's still not easy for the trailblazers to get through. But they get by with a little help from their friends. The true spirit of the Camel Trophy wins through again. While the British and Swiss teams go on ahead to try and prepare the route, the others set about repairing the ravages of the winter. There are more holes to fill in and more trees to fell, before the show is back on the road at last. In 14 hours, they have completed just 54 kilometres. On the way, 31 trees have been cut and the winches have been in action 16 times. All the classic Camel Trophy elements within a single day.
Well, in some parts it was very hard, in some other ones it wasn't that much, but we have to stop for a long time because we are a long caravan and then we have to wait for the rest of the companions. So for one vehicle, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles will be all right, but for the 18 vehicles it's kind of a slow down everything, you know.
Which part do you think was the most difficult?
Well, as far as work, it was when that landslide that we have to dig all the way for the vehicles, you know. Cutting trees, and that's not that difficult. In some other parts it was kind of tricky. It wasn't that much work, but you have to use your mind more than your hands, you know.
What sort of preparation have the Spanish team done for this sort of work?
Well, I think we've been mostly prepared for this, than for the special task that we made a couple of days ago. You know, we haven't been using so much the Torah trip and the calculators and watches and so much. We feel like this is more adventure than chrono type of action, you know. So we've been training for this, for winching and showering and digging, everything.
So Camel Trophy has lived up to expectations for you?
So far, yeah.
Headlamps splitting the dark of the night, the Camel Trophy train continues its relentless progress. Everything seems to be going smoothly, but trouble always strikes just when you least expect it. This time it's the Turkish team, leaders in the competitive part of the event, who find themselves sidelined. Their Land Rover 110 has soaked up so much punishment that the front differential finally cried enough and had to be disconnected. Fortunately, a replacement had been requested earlier when the British team thought theirs was on the way out. Everyone mucks in to lend their comrades a hand. A remarkable bond has been forged between the participants in the true spirit of comradeship that is the aim of the Camel Trophy. After a long night's work supervised by Australian mechanic Fred Wanicek, the show is back on the right track and ready for the painstaking descent from the mountains. The event helicopter, called into action to fly in parts for the stricken Turks, keeps an eye on the trekkers as they wind through the hairpin turns of the muddy mountain track. Now they are out of the mountains, the temperatures soar again, and water is a welcome sight as they head towards the coast. At the lunchtime halt will be the chance of a bath and a change of clothes, the first for several days. The only problem in the convoy is a gear selection gremlin which halted the Japanese for a while. It took 2 hours to fix, then the Japanese team promptly drove into a ditch, so eager were they to make up for lost time. In addition to the 12 team vehicles, the Camel Trophy convoy also contains a further 6 support Land Rovers, carrying supplies, first aid equipment, provisions and other essential cargo. This time it's one of these which finds itself on its side. By now it is a well-drilled team that springs into action with winches, pulleys, muscle power and know-how to right the stricken automobile. A rescue that would have taken hours at the beginning of the event is now completed in half the time.
Wait a second, I'm releasing this out.
And the Camel Trophy travellers continue on their way. The United Kingdom's Jim Benson and Mark Day tackle one of the most treacherous climbs in the entire event. Despite the absence of rain in this area, the steep track is still dangerous, clinging to the mountainside. Further up the trail, the edges are crumbling, and there's barely room for a Land Rover 110 to pass. However, by now, the driving skills of the participants have been honed to perfection. This time, there are no mishaps. Little do the Brits know that there is drama in store further up the mountain. The Belgian team, Marc Bulls and Yves de Bebeur, had hitched a tow from the French crew when their transmission failed. The long tow rope allowed the second vehicle to run wide on a bend, and driver Yves found himself a helpless passenger as the Land Rover headed for a sheer 400-metre drop. Luckily, German, Italian and Canary Island teams were on hand to complete the trickiest rescue operation of the event so far. Inch by inch, the Belgian vehicle is coaxed away from the precipice, and the Belgians decide to mark the site of their lucky escape with the universal danger sign. If there's towing to be done in future, ropes will be short and drivers more vigilant. It could so easily have ended in disaster. For the Belgians, with their smashed transmission, the going would have been impossible but for the spirit of the Camel Trophy once again coming to the rescue. With the Italians in the front pulling and the French pushing from behind, the Belgians became part of a 10-wheel drive train, and the Camel Trophy forged onwards towards the event's climax, the 4 final special tasks. Nangala, and the first real respite in the entire event. The 36-hour break gives the teams time to make good their vehicles and do all those repairs there has been no time for in the last hectic days. Navigational equipment comes in for particular attention as the contestants get themselves back into a competitive frame of mind for the final 2 days of special tasks. Most of the field found the going easy as predicted. All except the Brits finished within 36 seconds of the Canary Islanders. The unfortunate Benson and Day were minutes adrift. The Belgians look as if they mean business as they send a wayward chicken scurrying for safety. Easy does it as the Dutch press on into the night on special number 6, the most difficult of the tasks so far. Holland end the day in second place overall behind the Turks. Italy are 9th on the test, after stopping to repair a couple of collapsed bridges which barred their progress. That drops them to 4th overall behind the Turks, Holland and Switzerland. Sometimes speed is the answer, sometimes it leads to disaster. The French get away with it this time. Shaken but not stirred, perhaps, they take it a bit easier next time. Extra speed is unlikely to do any good. The French are last overall. Going into the final day of the event, the Turks are so far ahead they just need to cruise through the final 2 tasks to win. It's heavy going after days of torrential rain, as Silvano Delana and Edmondo Licursi discover. They find themselves in trouble yards behind Argentinians Daniel Aguila and Juan Catala, who are already stuck fast. Argentina lost 3/4 of an hour getting free, but the Italians are more fortunate and are stuck for just 15 minutes. Meanwhile, the Belgian team are busy winning the stage with a perfect time. Turkey are just 1 second behind. Switzerland's Peter Dudley and Leo Kalbermatten finished last after their Land Rover ended up on its side. The vehicle had slipped out of control on the exit of a bamboo bridge and it stuck fast. While help arrived, the Swiss team made sure they repaired the bridge using a spare tyre and a sand ladder. And they waved fellow competitors on so that no one would lose out on their special task time. Another example of the Camel Trophy spirit shining through. The Swiss will equal 6th overall at the end with Japan. The success story of the competitive sections has undoubtedly been the Turkish team of Galip Gürel and Ali Davici in the Land Rover they have nicknamed the Flying Carpet. They can afford to finish last but one on the final special task and still win handsomely. To the cheers of their fellow contestants, the Turks are crowned the Camel Trophy conquerors for 1988. Belgium finished second, just 2 points clear of their Benelux neighbours Holland, with the Italians 4th. The other major Camel Trophy award is the Team Spirit Prize. The winners are chosen by a vote of all the competitors, and the British team of Jim Benson and Mark Day top the poll as the best examples of the Camel Trophy camaraderie.
The winning ball is from Terry Harriman. Congratulations from Chris Drew, event director.
As the Turks indulge in a champagne-spraying celebration to mark the end of their adventure of a lifetime, the organisers are already looking ahead to the Camel Trophy 1989.